Cinema is a super influential medium and a great way for expressing human feelings, thoughts, and explore the ability of unknown and undiscovered realities. Whether we make imaginary films or reality dramas, or maybe science fiction, it is all about exposing the unseen sides of extraordinary life of human. The negative thoughts, the positive trends and acts, the rudeness, the needs of human beings, and many more unexpected events and realities of life. All happens in one screen, that is movies. By the time movies develop human brain and demanding life to a desired community, where most of human beings live under one rule of coexistence. Here in this video, we take into review and recap some great movies you may didn't know about. Hard 8. The main character is a well-dressed senior gambler, finds another friend, a homeless man, who is sitting outside a diner in a place in Nevada. He offers him a cigarette and buys him a cup of coffee. John tells Sidney that he lost his money in Las Vegas and he needs $6,000 for his mother's funeral. Sidney offers to drive John to Vegas, where he helps John win the money and help himself. 2 years later, John has become Sidney's protege. Sidney is calm and reserved and displays a fatherly care for John, who is unsophisticated. John found a new friend, Jimmy, who does security work in a private company. John is attracted to Clementine. She is a waitress in a disco. Sidney meets Clementine and learns his friend does the moonlight job as a prostitute. Although Clementine believes Sidney might want to use her services, he wants to build a connection between her and John. Sidney asks John to show Clementine around the town. After receiving a frantic phone call, Sidney finds John and Clementine holding a tourist hostage in a nearby motel when the client of Clementine's did not pay her $300. John reveals that he and Clementine impulsively got married, and Clementine prostituted herself to the tourist, who was knocked out and handcuffed to the bed. Sidney learns that John and Clementine have called the hostage's wife, plus threatening to kill him if they do not get the money. It's all about they need it. After they find Jimmy's gun, Sidney convinces them to flee the motel, gives advice to John and Clementine for leaving the town for a honeymoon. While leaving, Sidney removes the evidence from the motel room. Reservoir Dogs. 8 friends as a team of gangsters have their breakfast at a Los Angeles diner. The boss Joe Cabot and his son, underboss, nice guy Eddie Cabot, use their aliases Mr. Brown, Mr. White, Mr. Blonde, Mr. Blue, Mr. Orange and Mr. Pink. After Mr. Brown finishes rambling about a song, the group hardly argues about Mr. Pink's policy of not tipping. The gangsters carry out an expensive stone that is diamond heist. Mr. White flees with Mr. Orange. Both were shot during the escape and bleeding severely in the back of a friend's car. At one of Joe's warehouses, Mr. White and Mr. Orange rendezvous with Mr. Pink. They believe that it was already planned and set up job. And on the other side, the police was waiting for them. Mr. White gives some information to him that Mr. Brown is dead, Mr. Blue and Mr. Blonde are missing, and Mr. Blonde murdered several civilians during the heist. Mr. White is furious that Joe, his old friend, would employ Mr. Blonde, whom he describes as a psychopath. Mr. Pink has hidden the diamonds somewhere around and argues for getting medical attention for Mr. Orange, and both draw guns at each other. They stand down while Mr. Blonde arrives with a kidnapped policeman. Earlier, Mr. Blonde meets with the Cabots. After 4-year jail sentence, they reward him for not giving the name of his friend to the authorities and police for a lighter sentence. They offer him a great opportunity. Mr. Blonde is grateful, but insists that he wants to get back to real work, and they recruit him for the heist. In the present, Mr. White and Mr. Pink hit their friend Nash for information. Another friend arrives and orders them to retrieve the diamonds and ditch the getaway car. They leave Mr. Blonde in charge of Nash and Mr. Orange. Their friend Nash denies he doesn't know, and Mr. Blonde ignores him and resumes the torture. He cuts off Nash's ear. Then he prepares to set him on fire, but Mr. Orange shoots him. At the end, Mr. Orange reveals to Nash that he is a police officer and undercover. Matrix. There is an abandoned hotel, a police squad corners, who overpowers them with superhuman abilities. She flees, pursued by the police and a group of suited who are capable of similar superhuman feats. She answers a ringing telephone which is for public. A computer programmer, who is known by his code name Neo, is puzzled by repeated online encounters with the phrase, "The Matrix." Trinity contacts him and tells him the name of another man, and he has the answers Neo. A team of agents and police, led by Agent Smith, arrives at Neo's workplace in search of him. Though Morpheus attempts to guide Neo to safety, Neo surrenders rather than risk a dangerous escape via a scaffold. Morpheus offers Neo a choice between two pills, which is red to reveal the truth about the Matrix, and blue to forget everything and return to his former life. As Neo takes the red pill, his reality begins to distort, and he soon awakens in a liquid-filled pod among countless other pods, containing other humans. As Neo recuperates from a lifetime of physical inactivity in the pod, Morpheus explains the situation. In the early 21st century, a war broke out between humanity and AI. Though the humans had blocked the machine's access to solar energy by covering Earth's atmosphere with a thick layer of self-replicating nanobots, the machines won the war, and responded by enslaving humankind and harvesting their bioelectric power while keeping their minds pacified in the Matrix, a shared simulated reality, modeled on the world as it was in 1999. The Iron Giant. In the time of Cold War, an object from space crashes in the ocean just off the coast of Maine and then enters the forest near a town. The next night, there is a 9-year-old boy suddenly finds this giant machine. This machine is a 50-foot-tall robot. It is attempting to eat the transmission lines of an electrical substation. The boy becomes friend with the giant, finding him docile and curious. When he eats railroad tracks in the path of an oncoming train, the train collides with him and derails. The boy takes the giant away from the area, discovering that he can self-repair. In that far place, the boy shows the giant comic books and compares him to the hero and superpower. This incident leads to a paranoid U.S. government agent. He suspects the boy's involvement after talking with him and his widowed mother, Annie. Then they rent a room in their house to keep an eye on him. Hogarth, who is the boy, evades Mansley and leads the giant to a junkyard owned by beatnik artist who reluctantly agrees to keep him. Hogarth enjoys his time with the giant but is compelled to explain the concept of death to the giant after he witnesses hunters killing a deer. Hogarth is interrogated by Mansley when he discovers evidence of the giant after finding a photo of him next to Hogarth and summons a U.S. Army contingent led by General Shannon Rogard to the scrapyard to prove the giant's existence. They tricks them by pretending that the giant is one of his art pieces. The giant saves two boys falling from a roof when he arrives, winning over the townspeople. Mansley spots the giant in the town while leaving Rockwell and has the army attack the giant after he has picked up Hogarth, forcing the two to flee together. Hogarth is knocked unconscious, but the giant gives in to his defensive system in a fit of rage and grief, transforming. At the end, they realize all the good things about this Iron Giant.